And I think that, in business, if you're going to innovate, you don't just have to be better. You have to be radically better. It's not like you can come out with a product and say, it's going to save you 15%. It's going to have to totally change the way you do a thing. And so, the company I'm building right now is all about just understanding that we're going to be driving electric cars. And it is an eventuality, but a lot of people are worried about the range anxiety, the battery, all these things. And so we are literally, banking our entire future on the fact that people are fearful of these things, and we solve big problems, but we're massively more affordable. So versus renting a car from us, we're 5 times cheaper, not 15% cheaper. It's a big deal. So I think this has served me well, certainly throughout my entire life and my entire career. And so you've got globally a $10 trillion ecosystem that finances cars. And so how you pay for that car is as important as
Wait. You said 10 trillion?
$10 trillion
in the interest cost in cars.
In terms of auto finance. So the way to think about it is we all spend about 12 to 13% of our gross income on mobility. So if you make $100,000 a year, you're spending between $12,000 and $13,000 of that money every year on the car and all the stuff related to the car. Mobility,
sure.
Not just paying for the car, but also insurance, maintenance, repair, fuel, and title, tax, and registration. So the overall cost of mobility is about half on the car and half on everything else. So it's sort of a fun cocktail party game, but I can ask you, how much you make and tell you probably what you're driving. If you make $100,000 a year, you're probably driving a car payment of about $600 a month. And depending on who you are, I can tell you, we play this game around the brands and the different trim levels of car. Yeah. But it's really fascinating how cars have become a very, very essential part of modern life. If you live in Los Angeles, you are what you drive. First of all, we are only providing access to an electric car. And our belief is that we're all going to be driving electric. I think everybody knows that, companies like Tesla, when Tesla vaulted to $1 trillion market cap last year, it was in response to Hertz ordering 100,000 Teslas at one time. That $1 trillion market cap is so enviable that every other car maker has now said, they're not just going to make a couple of electric cars. They said they're going all in on electric. So General Motors didn't say, you know what, we're going to make 1 or 2 cars. They're going to go ahead and make the electric Corvette, the Hummer electric, Cadillac Lyriq, the Chevy Silverado, Equinox, Blazer. They're going all the way down to the Bolt. So they have cars ranging from mid-30s all the way up to the mid-100,000s. And so the sort of electrification of automotive is heavily underway.
What do you think of Elon and Twitter? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that he's a very high-minded guy, and he's got the thick enough skin to jump into that kind of an environment. And it's sort of like getting into politics without even being a politician. So there's a bunch of things that I would not enjoy about what he's doing, but I understand his objective. He believes that free speech is absolutely essential to civilization. He wants to make that a place where people can be free to speak. And I think that that's noble. He's willing to put his money where his mouth is. I think just purely, it's undeniable the effect it's having on Tesla. It's undeniable the effect it's having on his halo as a brand. Those are hard things to watch, but I admire him for what he's doing. I agree with many of the things. I think that anytime you're going to mix it up with, Kanye West and the Kardashians, it's going to be a little bit messy. And so I don't envy what he's doing at all. But I worry, he's running 3 really big, really important companies, and there isn't physically enough time in a day to do the things he's doing. So he either is going to do some of them poorly, and this goes all the way back to my West Point story. If you're going to succeed at Plebe Summer, you got to do 2 things. You got to pick which 2 to do right. So that's part of the exercise. Did you choose the 2 to do right, and did you ignore the other 8, and did you excel at those 2 things? That's sort of the test in front of him right now. And he is, to some degree, doing too many things, and he's going to do them more poorly if he keeps spreading himself thin. West Point's all about leadership. So one of the things that you really have to do is figure out how to motivate those around you to go and accomplish certain objectives, right? So one of the things that we were put into is a lot of real wartime situations where you would actually have opposing forces. So you would have two units both going against each other, moving with what they call miles gear. So you've got laser. It's sort of like laser tag, but with real weapons. And one of the things that you really have to do is go out and operate under very little sleep. And by the time you get to day 2 or 3 of sleep deprivation, you're operating on about 10 or 15% of, sort of mental capacity. And not everybody is operating at the same level. Again, I was a little bit older than most of the other cadets that were there. And so I became sort of a natural leader very quickly. But I loved war games and strategy and figuring out how to sort of get all of those kinds of advantages. I was always a really good orienteer. I understood how to read maps and how to get people from one place to another. Everybody at West Point is effectively a systems engineer. From 2010 to 2020, if you would have just listened to the conventional wisdom, you would have thought that Tesla owners were going to just run out of juice and clog the on-ramps and on-ramps of every freeway. And it just didn't happen that way. These are smart cars. They know when they need to charge. They know where to go. There's 3 kinds of charging: level 1, level 2, and level 3. 80% of EV users are driving their car less than 30 miles a day. And you can get 30 miles of charge in the evening on a level 1 charger. This is the converter cable that comes with the car. You can plug it into a 110 outlet. That also isn't taking much, load off of the overall grid as well. I advise the governor's office here in California, and on the day that they announced that they were going to propose this legislation to force everybody to buy an electric car by 2035, they also said, if you could not plug in your EV right now because we're going to have a brownout due to the heat, right? So that's a bit of a contradictory message. Everybody get an electric car and then we're going to overload the system. And the reality is that most people are charging on a level 1 charger, and you cannot overload the system if everybody's plugged into a 110 outlet. It's the same load that you would have with your hairdryer. I'll tell you one final story. In talking with my 4 kids, my oldest daughter is really, really intense. She is just high energy, a lot of ADHD, and she's going to be an entrepreneur in her life for sure. And my youngest son, who's very introspective, very disciplined, very OCD, came to me one day, and this was about 5 years ago, and said, "Dad, Zoe really bugs me, and I don't know if I want her to be my sister anymore." And I said, "Well, she's gonna be your sister no matter what you think. But Noah, what do you like about Zoe?" And he's like, "Nothing." And I said, "Well, let's list all of her qualities." And we list her qualities. And one of the qualities he put down there is her persistence, resilience, right? Determination to do a thing. And so we just had a family dinner, and I said, "Hey, what do you guys all think is the most important single quality to success in life?" And we all agreed that it was persistence, determination, and resilience. And Noah said at the end of that dinner, he goes, "Dad, if this is true, then Zoe's going to be the president of the United States." The electrification of automotive is going to be bigger than the introduction of the car in the first place. You've got a massive ecosystem that's going to have to think differently about how it does everything. And charging these vehicles is going to be key. One of the cool advantages, though, is you don't have to trench all the way back to the power plant. If you think about how inefficient delivering gasoline is to gas stations, it's happening on trucks, right? You've got to basically haul all of that fuel and at maximum weight to all of these stations on a daily basis. It is just an inherently very, very high friction, high physics-based activity, whereas electricity is already at the destination. You have to put in substations. Almost all of these level 3 charging facilities also are affiliated with a battery array. So the battery array becomes a storage facility as well. It can feed power back into the grid. And the cool thing about having a battery array attached to a charge point is that you can also take electricity, put it into cars during peak hours without using the grid at all. These are great businesses. And most importantly, if timing is anything in business, and I think it's everything, the number of dollars that are on the table, both at a federal, state, and city level for supporting infrastructure and this investment is enormous. Right now, there's a $5 billion federal incentive for building superchargers along interstate highways. That is being coupled with many, many billions of dollars at the state and city level. It is a tremendous opportunity. If done properly, entrepreneurs can build these facilities at no cost and create a long-term recurring revenue stream. We're all going to be driving an electric car. That's the prediction for sure.